Chapter 71. Impressive, Qin Ran. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 71. Impressive, Qin Ran. I'll go. Su Yaoguang walked forward. If the speaker wasn't good at improvising, then he would lose face in front of the school and all the cameras, so the pressure was especially great. Everyone in class 3.9 felt that in this situation, Su Yaoguang was the most suitable. Lin Siren also reacted and wanted to hold Qin Ran's hand. Yeah, Ran, don't do it out of anger. This matter isn't your fault. Let Su, but she failed to hold Qin Ran. Qin Ran didn't stop walking. She waved at Lin Siren and said softly, "Don't worry." They had already arrived in the classroom and the judges were already scoring. It was their class's turn soon, and when Lin Siren saw Qin Ran walking towards the podium, she quickly grabbed her notebook from her desk. Then I'll give you my notebook. Qin Ran was already standing by the side of the podium, her fingertips slightly cold. At the same time, the judges finished their scoring. There were several city-level leaders in the jury, and they all gave the average score after removing the highest and the lowest score. Qin Yu got a score of 8.7. The rest of them were still discussing her presentation. The highest scores obtained by the first two classes were only 7.6, so Qin Yu's score was by far the highest. We got 8.7, the girl next to Qin Yu suppressed her excitement and said excitedly. It's the highest score. Her score was much higher than the others and they all started talking about Qin Yu. All eyes were gathered on her. Qin Yu pursed her lips and smiled. She already saw that Su Yaoguang and the others were back, so she turned to them and asked, "Have they found their script?" I saw that Qin Ran went up empty-handed, so I don't think they did. The girl shook her head. If they do badly now, the dean will surely be angry. How could he not be angry if she does badly in front of the municipal leaders? I heard that Qin Ran was the one who kept the scripts, she's really. Another girl also whispered. Qin Yu smiled, got up, and went to the leaders to get her feedback. While the leaders complimented Qin Yu, the others whispered amongst themselves. It seemed like they were talking about Qin Ran, and two people even praised the school for having good-looking students. Qin Yu was familiar with the dean, so she lowered her eyes and whispered, "Dean, Qin Ran's class lost their script, so it might not be too smooth. Don't make things too difficult for her." The dean was shocked, then he nodded. His expression wasn't too good. If the script was lost, it was an attitude problem. Soon, it was class 3.9's turn. Lin Siren was sitting on her seat, signaling Qin Ran with her notebook. Qin Ran didn't come back to take the notebook, just gestured for Lin Siren to rest assured. Rest assured. How could Lin Siren possibly feel rest assured? Su Yaoguang sat firmly and glanced at Qin Ran. She was standing straight and her face wasn't as absent-minded and inattentive as before. She looked more serious now and was so natural she didn't look like she had stage fright. She didn't look like she was messing around. He paused and relaxed his eyebrows. Since she said not to worry, then she must be confident. The other people were still looking for the script. Class 3.9 was also furious that someone had deliberately taken Qin Ran's script. Someone scolded the person for being unethical. Wu Yan sneered and said satirically, she did not participate in writing the script from beginning to end. She only knows how to play around every day and don't take things seriously at all. I already said since the beginning that we shouldn't let her participate. Enough, Wu Yan. A girl frowned. Who knew that there would be such a nasty student? Wu Yan heard this student's words and her face turned dark, but she said nothing. She just glanced at Qin Ran and pursed her lips. She clenched the corner of her jacket, her fingers tightening. Qin Ran stood still and greeted the judges first. The dean raised his hand and asked in an undulated voice, "Where is your script? Did you lose it?" Qin Ran put her hands on the podium and smiled very politely. Teachers and judges, I have memorized the script in advance, so I didn't bring my script. Everyone knew that it was considered a disrespect to this activity and to the judges to have lost her script on such an important occasion. Qin Ran had concealed the fact that she had lost her script, but Lin Siren, Su Yaoguang, and the other people in class 3.9 were sweating. In this debate contest, it was a development for the social sciences, which was a hot spot in the world, and all the universities were inclined to participate. Su Yaoguang and Lin Siren and the others had researched a lot of information and had included professional vocabulary used from other countries. Most importantly, no one knew better than Lin Siren that Qin Ran didn't participate in this debate from beginning to end. She had only let Qin Ran read the general script this morning and had only let her read the script once. Qin Ran hasn't even read the script enough times, so how could she have memorized it? It turns out that you have memorized it and did your homework in advance. The dean glanced at Qin Ran and said solemnly, then begin. Lin Siren's spine was cold and sweaty, and the people in class 3.9 all had dark expressions on their faces. Qin Yu only stared at Qin Ran, her lips curled up. Qin Ran smiled very lightly. She picked up a piece of chalk and drew a stick figure on the blackboard on the back half. From the perspective of the teenagers, the technology system is roughly divided into three aspects. Half of the blackboard showed the slides and the other half was empty. Her analogy was very simple, but her explanation was extremely vivid. Her tone was calm and her speech was organized clearly and without the slightest bit of stuttering. Lin Siren was right. She looked good and was like the most beautiful background even while standing still. Furthermore, when she talked, she wasn't unbridled like the others but exuded a sort of unprecedented seriousness that made her whole person shine. Some people in the classroom were whispering softly and even looking over subconsciously every few seconds. The expression on the dean's face changed from displeasure to surprise, and then from surprise to seriousness. All the classes were sitting at their seats, looking up at Qin Ran dumbfounded. They couldn't return to their senses for a while, especially Lin Siren, who had personally written most of the script. It had been written by her, so she still had a somewhat vague memory of it. Wasn't the first paragraph of Qin Ran's speech the opening statement? Qin Ran had only read through it several times, but she had memorized the whole script already. Chapter 72. Check the CCTV, don't bicker with me. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 72. Check the CCTV, don't bicker with me. Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios' Su Yaoguang kept staring at Qin Ran. Qin Ran's right hand was still injured, and although it wasn't obvious when she drew her drawings, it was a little slow and wasn't as clear and beautiful as with her right hand. But despite this, it was obvious that she had fundamental drawing skills and it was enough to shock the teachers and students in the classroom. Qin Ran stood by the blackboard, drawing pictures occasionally and then explaining her script. In this speech contest, the previous three classes also had scripts, but because there was too much content, nobody really spent much time on it. Qin Ran was unique, however, and even dished out a few English words. Speeches were usually very boring and dry, but she managed to pull everyone's attention on her. The dean and the leaders were truly convinced this time. After Qin Ran's speech, he looked at the timer and then asked Qin Ran several questions. Qin Ran answered them one by one. The leaders couldn't help but nod their heads and praise this group for working hard. They turned to the dean to comment on the students of First Middle School. Yes, it's hard for you to be so decisive. The dean nodded in praise. He had always been an unsmiling type but was now looking at Qin Ran with the eyes of an old father. You're called Qin Ran, right? Go down and call your members for the question and answer. Qin Ran got down and saw that Lin Siren and the others were still sitting on their chairs staring at her, stunned. She smiled and didn't return to her seat. She just leaned on the side and said, "It's time for question and answer." Lin Siren regained her senses and went on stage with her notebook. Their score ended up being 9-7. If it weren't because Lin Siren and the others had taken their notebooks with them, they would have gotten more points. After they received their scores, Lin Siren and the others walked down all the way. Qin Ran returned to her seat and leaned slightly on the back of the chair. The students in the classroom looked at her but didn't dare to talk to her. Only the students from class 3.9 were excited and noisy. Only when Lin Siren and the others went back to sit did the students from the other classes start discussing with them. The following speeches didn't stand out. Not only did the students sound dull, but the judges were also bored. A total of 17 classes participated in this speech. The scores after Qin Ran were especially low, and the scores of the following 13 classes didn't exceed 8 points. The girl next to Qin Yu patted her chest in relief. Fortunately, we were before Qin Ran. Otherwise, we wouldn't have even gotten 8 points. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that they had been lucky. There were 2 treasures in this school. One of them was Su Yaoguang, who occupied the first place all year round. The other was Pan Mingyue, who was always second. Su Yaoguang was in Qin Ran's class, while Pan Mingyue's class didn't participate, so class 3.9 naturally won from the content of their speech. Coupled with the speaker's performance, Qin Yu was far inferior. If she had really given her speech after Qin Ran, it wasn't certain if she could even get 8 points. Qin Yu was talking to her classmates with a smile on her face, but she felt extremely uncomfortable inside. She glanced over at Qin Ran subconsciously. Su Yaoguang also glanced sideways at Qin Ran with his eyes narrowed, deep in thought. Qin Yu pursed her lips and felt even more vexed. The people beside her were still talking about Qin Ran presenting without her script, and her smile was slowly fading. First place, we got first place. A bunch of people surrounded Qin Ran. Qin Ran, Sister Ran, you're too impressive. You actually memorized such a long script. They got first place, but when they returned to their classroom, they still had to do self-study. Everyone in the class crowded over. Qin Ran's lips curled and she sat at her desk smiling casually. She said humbly, I just read it and remembered it. Xiao Xing teased her. If your memory is so good, you wouldn't have to come to school. The others all agreed, and then someone said that she drew very well. Qin Ran ignored him. Xiao Xing then thought of something serious and smiled at Qin Ran. Then, he walked to the podium with big strides and sat on a table. He held the blackboard eraser in his hand and knocked it against the table loudly. Quiet down. Everyone quieted down. The people who had been surrounding Qin Ran sat down properly and didn't dare to say a single word. Lin Siren said that the script has always been in the region of class 3.9. I asked a few people and they said that they didn't see anyone from other classes approaching. Xiao Xing was smiling, but his eyes were cold. Thus, I suspect that it was someone from our class, and especially someone from the group. Whoever it is, stand up now. Nobody in the class spoke, and they didn't even dare to breathe loudly. Xiao Xing nodded and continued smiling. Fine. I guess that person probably forgot that we still have CCTVs in the classrooms and corridors. I will go to the surveillance room after school. After he said this, everyone in the class exchanged glances and then started discussing in low voices. Xiao Sheng is so handsome. Wu Yan's deskmate whispered, suppressing her excitement and squeezing her fists. But the person who took the script is really despicable. Who could be so jealous of Qin Ran that she would do such a wicked deed like stealing the script? If Qin Ran hadn't memorized the script, wouldn't it have been over? Wu Yan smiled. Yeah. Her hands were still squeezed tightly and she was a little distracted. After school at night, Xiao Xing didn't go to the basketball court. Instead, he said something to Su Yaoguang and the two of them went out. Xiao Sheng, wait for me, I want to go too. A boy who had attended the speech at noon knew that they were going to see the CCTVs. I want to see who lacks team spirit in our class. Wu Yan's face turned paler. She glanced at Qin Ran's direction. Qin Ran didn't like to leave first after school and always liked taking her time. Someone was hurrying Wu Yan. Wu Yan took her time and distributed the English answer sheets that she had collected yesterday. The English teacher had already marked them, and when she distributed Qin Ran's paper, she saw that she only got 4 points. Wu Yan didn't have ridicule in her eyes this time. She just looked around and saw that a few students were still discussing the questions. She pursed her lips, thought for a while, and left with her friends. The school's medical office. Qin Ran was here for sleeping pills. There were several bowls on the table with lids on them to prevent the heat from escaping. You performed well today. Lu Xiaoying laid on the table and grinned at her. You probably won't be scolded. Cheng Wan wasn't in the school doctor's office and Lu Xiaoying said that he had gone out. Hey, classmate, are you here to see the doctor? Lu Xiaoying raised his head when he saw someone outside. It was a female student. He's off work, but I can still help you out. No, I came to find someone. The girl's face was red and she turned to Qin Ran. Qin Ran, can you come out? I have something to tell you. Qin Ran was sitting on the chair with chopsticks in her hands. She glanced over at her coldly. Tell me here, I can't move. It's a private matter. Wu Yan glanced at Lu Xiaoying and pursed her lips. It's not good. I don't have any private matters with you. Qin Ran ignored her. Wu Yan just glanced at Lu Xiaoying, her eyes watery. She was really about to cry and was seeking help from Lu Xiaoying. However, Lu Xiaoying just grinned and stepped back. He touched his ear studs and gestured to it. I won't remember what you say, little girl. His gentleness towards Wu Yan had disappeared totally. Wu Yan's face turned pale and she hesitated for a moment. When she saw that Qin Ran and Lu Xiaoying were really ignoring her request, she squeezed her hands and said with a pale face, Qin Ran, the matter at noon. It was me. But since you already memorized the script, it was still considered a blessing in disguise. Could you tell Qiao Sheng not to bicker about it with me? Chapter 73. Qin Ran made you check, right? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 73. Qin Ran made you check, right? Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios Wu Yan didn't even think that Qiao Sheng would go to the surveillance room for Qin Ran. Everyone in class 3.9 knew that Qiao Sheng only listened to Su Yaoguang. Since when did he care about other people's affairs? Even Qin Yu couldn't win over Su Yaoguang's influence. But how long had it been since Qin Ran was here? Wu Yan was really scared now that Qiao Sheng had intervened. She didn't dare to tell Qiao Sheng. Although Qiao Sheng appeared mischievous usually, he was actually a young master that everyone was fearful of and he also carried a fierce aura. So she could only come to beg Qin Ran. Qin Ran looked up without a surprised expression on her face. She threw the chopsticks on the table loudly with an expressionless face, but her body was burning in rage. Wu Yan was startled. You. Qin Ran cleared her throat. She was about to say something when she smelled a familiar cold fragrance. The tense atmosphere eased for a moment. Qin Ran looked over. Cheng Wan was still wearing a patternless black shirt with a row of transparent buttons. He was holding his phone in his hand and seemed to be talking to someone. A young man followed 3 steps behind him. He seemed to sense the strange atmosphere in the school doctor's office and narrowed his eyes. Call me again later. He hung up and didn't even look at Wu Yan. His eyes fell on Qin Ran and then swept over to Lu Xiaoying. Wu Yan stared at him and was stunned for a moment, unable to react. Lu Xiaoying touched his chin and signaled a little to him. He knew about what had happened to Qin Ran in the afternoon. Wu Yan's sentence, but you memorized the script and, blessing in disguise, made it very obvious. Lu Xiaoying wasn't stupid. As he kicked out and the chair moved back, he said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes, "Oh, this little girl deliberately stole Qin Ran's script at noon and wanted to see Qin Ran make a fool of herself in front of the whole school." But she didn't expect that Qin Ran had not only memorized the whole thing, but she also gave an amazing presentation. Someone wanted to check the CCTVs, so she came over to beg Qin Ran to keep the peace and gloss over the matter. According to the prosecution's norm, if revenge and framing caused the victim's personal rights to be damaged, resulting in mental disorders, etc., then the person who committed the crime has to face imprisonment or detention for up to 2 years. Qi Qingjun, who was behind Cheng Wan, looked at Wu Yan, turned, and chuckled. "Ms. Qin, do you need a lawyer?" "I really didn't mean it." Wu Yan returned to her senses and panicked. She sobbed softly and said, "Qin Ran, don't. You didn't mean it." Cheng Wan put away his phone and glanced at Wu Yan. His delicate eyebrows were eased and he looked quite gentle. "So the script ran to you, and then threatened you to throw it away." His words were full of mockery. It was quite poisonous. Wu Yan froze and felt the 3 men stare at her with a strange expression. Her face turned red and then dark. Under Cheng Wan's mockery, she couldn't bear it and ran out of the school doctor's office while choking. Qi Qingjun looked away and turned to stare at the only girl in the school doctor's office. He knew that she was probably the Ms. Qin that he had been so curious about. Qin Ran wasn't curious about him. She didn't pick up her chopsticks and took the thermos on the table instead. Cheng Wan had wanted to make a call, but he narrowed his eyes as he watched her and forgot about it. He came over and helped her unscrew the lid before pouring her a glass of water. During this period when Qin Ran's hand was injured, Lin Siren and Cheng Wan both helped her unscrew the lid. She took it, familiar with the movement, and thanked him after taking a sip. Qi Qingjun had wanted to talk to Qin Ran. What had he just seen? He turned again and saw Lu Xiaoying with 1 foot upon the table. He didn't seem curious about the scene at all, as if he was used to it. Qi Qingjun was such a calm and sensible person usually. He had always gotten to the point in the courtroom and was extremely sharp with his words. But now, he was stunned for a full minute before he sat down thoughtfully on a chair at the side. Then, he let Cheng Mu pour him a cup of tea. Qin Ran was in a good state today and didn't have to change her bandage. Instead, she took a bottle of sleeping pills and stuffed it in her pockets before taking her book from the table and returning to her bedroom. From beginning to end, Qi Qingjun didn't find an opportunity to communicate with her in depth. And she wasn't curious about Qi Qingjun at all. She just bowed her head in greeting and continued eating. After eating, she just left with her sleeping pills. She was cold and rather charismatic. This little girl. Qi Qingjun stared at her back as she left. No wonder people are jealous of her. Cheng Wan watched as she left and then turned to Cheng Mu. He said in a low voice, "Go and investigate what happened." Cheng Mu responded numbly. Cheng Wan picked up his phone and continued his call. He saw an answer sheet on the floor out of the corner of his eye and picked it up. Qin Ran had dropped it accidentally when she took her book. He had wanted to look at it casually, but when he saw it, Cheng Wan paused for a moment and his grip tightened slightly. Qi Qingjun was sitting opposite him and was quite curious. He leaned over to look at it and saw that the answer sheet received only 4 points. He laughed first, then turned and seemed to find something wrong. Lu Xiaoying put his hand on the back of the chair and smiled. That little girl is good at everything, but her IQ is poor. It's rare to see her getting a double-digit score, it's really sad. Lu Xiaoying sighed. Qi Qingjun glanced at him expressionlessly, then pointed to the answer sheet. Are you sure her IQ is low? Lu Xiaoying was stunned. He got up from his chair and leaned over to look at the answer sheet. He looked for a long while and couldn't see anything besides the 4 points. She got 4 points, what's wrong? Cheng Wan kept the answer sheet, deep in thought. Qi Qingjun glanced at Lu Xiaoying with an inexplicable sense of complication. Nothing. Lu Xiaoying's lips twitched and he suddenly felt like Qi Qingjun wanted to fight with him. It really is her. It was getting dark and Xiao Sheng had finally found the video he wanted from the bunch of data. Wu Yan. Several boys in the class looked at each other. Su Yaoguang leaned on one side, his posture elegant and his eyes cold. Copy it and let's go. Xiao Sheng had already copied it with his mouse. Boom, there was a knock on the door. The boys thought that it was the security guard, but when they turned around, they saw that it was a girl standing there. Qin Yu. You're here to find young Master Su. Everyone knew her because of her relationship with Su Yaoguang and Xiao Sheng, and they all knew that she was on good terms with Su Yaoguang. Qin Yu smiled and turned to Xiao Sheng. What do you intend to do? Xiao Sheng tossed the USB in his hands and smiled. Publish the video. I bumped into Wu Yan on the way here and she's in a very bad state. Qin Yu sighed and pursed her lips. Have you thought about how much pressure Wu Yan would face if you publish it? What if she can't handle it? What if she takes it too hard? She paused and then laughed. Did my sister make you check the CCTV? Not anyone could casually check the security department's surveillance videos. They weren't policemen. Only Xiao Sheng had this resolution. Chapter 74. Do you like her that much? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 74. Do you like her that much? Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios, then have you thought about what your sister would be facing if she hadn't memorized it? Xiao Sheng paused and put away the USB flash drive. He stood by the table and laughed. Also, you seem to be very malicious towards your sister. She's not the kind of person who will seek help from others. How do you know she isn't that kind of person? Qin Yu stared at Xiao Sheng and asked. I've seen her like that many times. She doesn't say anything, but she acts like she had been wronged. Just look at how your whole class is acting sympathetic to her experience. If you publish the video, wouldn't you make Wu Yan discriminated against? No one can beat her in terms of tactics. Xiao Sheng understood Qin Ran more or less since they had been in contact for a long time. Qin Ran was really cold, and also fought well. Would a person who had even conquered Wei Zihang show weakness to him? Xiao Sheng didn't even dare to speak too loudly when she was in a bad mood and just casually glanced at him. He also didn't dare to associate the word weak with Qin Ran. He had always felt like Qin Ran was somewhat unpredictable, and he didn't know what kind of environment had developed such a character like hers. She's my friend, so I definitely know her character. Qin Yu, I don't need you to lecture me. I'm not stupid and I have my own judgment. Xiao Sheng sneered and kicked the chair further away. He made a path for himself and then ran a hand through his hair. Young Master Su, I'm going to the cafeteria. Qin Yu let Xiao Sheng's words sink in. She realized with a sinking heart that Xiao Sheng was on Qin Ran's side. His attitude was firm and he wouldn't be shaken. He really had no doubt about Qin Ran. Qin Yu stood there and felt the boys staring at her. She couldn't help but purse her lips. She didn't expect Xiao Sheng to really not give her face. Her eyes shook slightly as she said, Xiao Sheng, we've known each other for 2 years, but you've only known her for 1 month. Can it be compared? At least she won't tell tales in front of me. Xiao Sheng paused and snorted. Qin Yu gritted her teeth and looked at Xiao Sheng's back inconceivably. Qin Ran's tactic was really brilliant. Silently, she had subdued both Lin Jinxian and Xiao Sheng. Qin Yu sucked in a deep breath and stared after Xiao Sheng. Her eyes flashed a sense of unwillingness, but she quickly covered it up. Young Master Su, Xiao Xing refuses to listen to my explanation. But you. Qin Yu sighed, pursed her lips, and said in a low tone. Su Yaoguang squeezed his phone and looked up at her. You want me to plead with Xiao Xing, eh? But this time, Wu Yan has really gone overboard. I know Wu Yan is at fault, but she is my friend. She will really be ruined if I don't care about her. Qin Yu sighed and lowered her eyebrows. You don't have to make such a big fuss over this matter. You don't have to be so cruel to Wu Yan when you're all classmates. Su Yaoguang stood sideways, his expression cold as always. We have known each other for 2 years and I have never asked anything of you before. But this time, I'm begging you, okay? Qin Yu tilted her head and smiled gently. In the cafeteria. Xiao Sheng was having dinner with several of his brothers in class 3.9. Qin Yu didn't follow. Xiao Sheng saw that the boys had already packed Su Yaoguang's meal and glanced behind him. He put his foot on the table and laughed. She went to practice the violin. I have something to talk to you about. Su Yaoguang sat down beside Xiao Sheng and picked up the chopsticks beside the bowl. Xiao Sheng nodded and expressed his understanding. Are you going to watch her practice after talking to me? After spending such a long time with Su Yaoguang, he also understood him completely. He really liked those who played the violin, and Qin Yu was good at it. Xiao Sheng had often gone with Su Yaoguang to listen. But now, Xiao Sheng didn't really have much contact with Qin Yu and rarely visited her. Yeah. Su Yaoguang put a piece of vegetable in his mouth and then spoke after swallowing it. It's enough to just lecture Wu Yan privately. Don't publish the video. Xiao Sheng paused. He slammed his chopsticks on the table and was quite annoyed. He put his hands on the table and asked, No way, young Master Su. Did Qin Yu beg you? Yeah. Su Yaoguang didn't deny it. Damn it. Xiao Sheng clenched his fists and hit the table. On the opposite side of the table, a spoon on the edge of the table fell to the ground with a shock, making a crisp sound. The students all ate their meals sullenly, not daring to even glance at Xiao Sheng. Su Yaoguang was still calm and was holding his chopsticks as elegantly as always. I'll owe you a favor for this. Young Master Su, I know you really like Qin Yu, but do you really need to do this for her? Xiao Sheng was very annoyed and leaned back in his seat. She indeed plays well. Su Yaoguang remembered the song he had heard downstairs in the art building that day. Later, he had looked through the surveillance cameras, but the violinist had avoided all the cameras. If he wasn't so logical, he would have almost believed that it wasn't human. However, he was very clear that Qin Yu wasn't the one who had played the violin that day. I've heard her play for 2 years and this is the first time she begged me. Su Yaoguang narrowed his eyes and looked over at Xiao Sheng. So do you agree? Xiao Sheng clenched his fists and then let go weakly. Then, he sighed. Young Master Su, how could I disobey you? But since he had already compromised, Xiao Sheng couldn't help but vent. Young Master Su, what are you trying to do? Do you really like her that much? Other than not being able to play the violin, Qin Ran is much cuter than her. She's very interesting. Su Yaoguang paused and glanced at Xiao Sheng. Hey, Xiao Sheng laughed. I can tell. If you told her that you're Beijing's, would she still dangle you around? Young Master Su was actually staying in Yun Chang's dormitory and eating in the cafeteria. Su Yaoguang ignored him. Xiao Sheng didn't understand. Why was Su Yaoguang so calm and why did he help Qin Yu so much over a matter that even he could see through? Did he like someone who could play the violin that much? Xiao Sheng was a little angry. What an addiction. Xiao Sheng didn't go for self-study at night. He felt too ashamed to see Qin Ran and just hid at home. He took out his mobile phone and stared at Qin Ran's profile for a long time before finally sending a message, Qin Ran, I have been suppressed. I'm sorry. But I will definitely teach Wu Yan a lesson for you. The next day, Qin Yu had already told Wu Yan about the matter. Thank you. Wu Yan didn't expect that Qin Yu would do so much to help her out. She grasped Qin Yu's hand gratefully. Young Master Su really does cover for you. Wu Yan had always kept in mind the school's unwritten rules. If there was someone who she could never mess with, it was Qin Yu. Because young Master Su covered for her. We're all friends, how could I have not helped? Qin Yu smiled. Class is starting, you should go back. Wu Yan looked at her gratefully. She went back to her class. She went back to her seat and took out her Chinese texts to read. She glanced at Qin Ran's direction subtly. Qin Ran was leaning against the wall and playing on her phone. Then, she saw the message that Xiao Sheng had sent 3 hours ago. She narrowed her eyes slightly and turned to Xiao Sheng. Xiao Sheng was lying on the table with his head buried in his arms. After class ended, Wu Yan came over to Qin Ran and whispered, "Qin Ran, you didn't expect it, did you? You don't even need to open your mouth, did you think? Without Xiao Sheng covering for you, what are you even in this school?" She had begged Qin Ran so hard yesterday, and Qin Ran had ignored her. Wu Yan hated her even more. Qin Ran was stunned at Wu Yan's words. She understood what Xiao Sheng had meant. Qin Ran took out her exercise book and propped her legs up. She then glanced at Wu Yan in a seemingly good mood. "Who told you that I needed to rely on someone?" Wu Yan saw that she wasn't angry and was even smiling. She was involuntarily stunned. This was different from how she had imagined. At this time, Lin Siren, who was sitting with Xia Fei, suddenly pinched her phone and was stunned. Then, she stood up fiercely and shouted at Wu Yan, "Wu Yan, why did you throw away Ran Rant's script?" Chapter 75. You want to bicker? Fine, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 75. You want to bicker? Fine, translator. Atlas Studios editor. Atlas Studios. The class fell silent. A few of the girls who had participated in the speech said in shock, "Lin Siren, did you get it wrong?" Wu Yan was also one of the members who had written the script. How could she not know the severity of losing the script during the speech? "Lin Siren, don't talk nonsense." Wu Yan's pupils shrank, but at the thought of what Qin Yu had said to her, she relaxed again. Did someone drive a wedge between us? Maybe she purposely memorized it herself and then tore the script to gain attention. Otherwise, how could she have memorized such a long script with her mere IQ? Everyone knew she was talking about Qin Ran. Wu Yan was certain that Xiao Sheng wouldn't dare to defy Su Yaoguang's words. The video would never be released if it were up to the two of them. Wu Yan grew more confident at this thought. What Wu Yan said also made sense. In everyone's eyes, Qin Ran wasn't a studious person, and it was really puzzling that she had been able to memorize the script. Wu Yan looked unashamed and had even accused Lin Siren and Qin Ran so fiercely. She looked imposing, as if she had been framed innocently. "Lin Siren, you might have misunderstood. Someone tried to be the peacemaker. Don't get agitated. Misunderstanding." Wu Yan remembered the sense of humiliation she had felt when Qin Ran had ignored her yesterday. She opened her mouth and smiled domineeringly. "Lin Siren, did Qin Ran say that to you?" The whole class looked at Qin Ran subconsciously. Qin Ran still had the exercise book in her hand and was tapping it with her fingers. There was still a casual smile on her face. She leaned against the wall and lifted her chin slightly. Her anger had always been obvious, but now, nobody could tell from her expression. BDNVL.M. They exchanged glanced and felt a little indecisive about this matter. "You're so annoying." At this moment, Xiao Sheng, who had been lying on the table with his head buried, stood up with a sulky face. He kicked the stool and shouted, "Sit down, all of you. Don't disturb my sleep." Although Qiao Sheng was a rich second-generation heir, he was usually mischievous and didn't put on airs. But now, he stood up and said in a low voice, making the whole class silent. They didn't dare to talk. Wu Yan felt suffocated inside. Since Qiao Sheng had agreed not to release the video, he definitely didn't publicize it. He had only stood up to protect Qin Ran. Why? Why was it that when she had begged Qin Ran, she could be unreasonable, yet she could gloss over the matter at this time? Lin Siren, Qin Ran. Wu Yan felt a burst of anger inside her, be it out of jealousy or something else. You have to explain this matter to me today. Wu Yan. Qiao Sheng gave her a warning look. If she still refused to settle down, even if there was still Su Yaoguang to consider, he didn't intend on staying quiet. Wu Yan bit her lip and felt reluctant, but didn't dare to say anything. In everyone's eyes, it felt like Qiao Sheng was deliberately protecting Qin Ran. Only Xia Fei and Lin Siren remained silent. Lin Siren looked at Wu Yan as if she wanted to see how far she could go. Forget it, Wu Yan, don't bicker anymore. Wu Yan's deskmate was on good terms with her and pulled on her arm. Wu Yan's look of grievance was real. Ha! Lin Siren suddenly laughed. Wu Yan, if I didn't know the truth, I would really have thought that you had been wronged after seeing your expression. Wu Yan had already reached her seat. At this, she exploded like a pierced balloon. Lin Siren, what do you mean? Fine, I didn't want to bicker with you at first, but if you slander me again and again because of what Qin Ran told you. The rest of them could tell that Wu Yan was very angry. Wu Yan's deskmate immediately pulled Wu Yan and said softly, this might be a misunderstanding and might have nothing to do with you and Qin Ran. Drop it. Wu Yan's eyes were red with anger and she looked like she wanted to kill Qin Ran. Everyone really thought she had been wronged deeply. A few students even wanted to comfort her. It was as if she was the biggest victim here. Lin Siren looked at the silent Qin Ran and felt uncomfortable. Before self-study, Lin Siren had gone to Xia Fei to discuss a math question. The math teacher had discussed it in class and Lin Siren had understood it. In class, Qin Ran circled a few questions and said that she didn't understand, so Lin Siren had explained it to her. Lin Siren also only understood half of it. Although she knew that Qin Ran wasn't serious in studying, she didn't want to teach her half-heartedly either. So, she had gone to find Xia Fei to discuss the problem and had wanted to really understand the question from the topic to the formula to the answer. After the two of them discussed the problem, Lin Siren had sorted out her thoughts by writing it down. Xia Fei had let her think by herself. She then picked her phone and continued sliding on it. When Lin Siren finished thinking about the problem, she found that Xia Fei's expression was strange, so she glanced over at her phone subconsciously. She saw a surveillance video. In the corridor, there was an image of a girl tearing a piece of paper. She was facing to the side and the camera wasn't very clear, but it was obvious that the girl was Wu Yan. Lin Siren had experienced the nervousness of having lost her script first-hand. Under that sort of circumstance, the script had been lost in front of Qin Ran. If Qin Ran hadn't had such a good memory, their class would definitely have lost face in front of the city leaders and the TV stations. This meant that their efforts over several days had been in vain, and the source of all this would have been projected onto Qin Ran. So Class 3.9 had acted collectively after knowing that the script had been thrown away. They had expressed anger towards the person who had done this and had hated the same enemy. After knowing that this had been done by Wu Yan, Lin Siren felt frustrated and angry. What made Lin Siren feel most unexpected was that even after she had exposed her, Wu Yan still felt aggrieved. Wu Yan's deskmate glanced at Lin Siren at this moment. Lin Siren, you should drop it too. Because of Wu Yan's performance, the people in the class all felt like Lin Siren might be a little unreasonable. You want to bicker over it? Fine. Lin Siren took Xia Fei's phone and held it up. She wasn't smiling and didn't even bother explaining, just enlarged the screen and pushed the phone into Wu Yan's hands. She said in a soft voice, "Look at it." Chapter 76. Extra. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 76. Extra. Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios B-Nov calm. Wu Yan just laughed and wasn't bothered by it. But her deskmate suddenly let go of her hand. "Why, what's here?" Wu Yan sneered and lowered her head. She originally wanted to continue ridiculing her, but before her words reached her mouth, her face suddenly froze. Her expression changed and she wanted to delete the video. Lin Siren stared at her. "This video is on the forum. It couldn't be deleted." The other students in the class quickly took out their mobile phones and flipped to the school's forum. The post was on the first page and was very easy to see. Wu Yan looked around subconsciously and her deskmate, who had wanted to speak up for her, took a step back while holding her phone, looking at her with precaution. In the video, Wu Yan's side profile was easy to recognize. The clarity wasn't in the blue.ray version, but the expression on her face could be seen clearly. She tore a few pieces of paper and threw the USB flash drive into the trash can. Then, she poured water on it, her side face smiling sinisterly and strangely. Wu Yan's appearance made everyone in class 3.9 gasp and become completely stunned. She had said that Qin Ran had put on a play all by herself, that Qin Ran had deliberately framed her, but now, it seemed like she was talking about herself. This surveillance camera showed who was innocent and who the culprit was in a glance. Wu Yan had looked wrong just now, so some people really doubted that Qin Ran had really put on a play by herself, and many also thought that Lin Siren had been making trouble. But now it was extremely ironic. They had defended the true culprit, Wu Yan. Qin Ran had saved the face of class 3.9 and had maintained their reputation, only to be spurned and suspected by them. They themselves even felt disappointed for Qin Ran. And how did Wu Yan put on a face of innocence and anger and push all the blame onto Qin Ran? "Qin Ran, I'm sorry." Wu Yan's deskmate bowed to Qin Ran, her face full of guilt. Then she went back to her seat, ignored Wu Yan, and moved her books to the space between their desks. She was already so scheming at this young age. If it hadn't been for the surveillance camera, then wouldn't Qin Ran have had no chance of dispute? The other students who had talked before also came up to apologize. "I'm sorry, Qin Ran." Wu Yan's hands trembled and her mind was blank. She was simply dumbfounded. She felt like her mind had stopped working. What had she said all self-righteously just now? She had said that she originally didn't intend on bickering over the matter with Qin Ran, and the other students had believed her subconsciously because of this sentence. But now, it was simply a joke from beginning to end. She didn't even dare to look at the people she had a good relationship with before, because they were all looking at her with disgusted expressions. She had thought that nobody else except Xiao Sheng would be able to get the surveillance videos. She had thought that everything was under her control. But this surveillance video had completely exposed her face. "Lying bitch, you're really disgustingly fake. You were the one who did it, how could you still pretend to have been framed and act all innocent and angry?" Someone muttered in a low voice. "She's simply shameless. Isn't she just jealous that Xiao Sheng and Qin Ran are on good terms?" The student sitting behind Wu Yan moved her table backward and scolded. Facing the obvious rejection and accusation of her classmates, Wu Yan bowed her head and ran out of the back door, stumbling on her way. Some people were still apologizing to Lin Siren. She wasn't in a good mood, so she just shook her head and went back to her seat. She turned around and asked softly, Ran, are you okay?" "I'm fine, thanks." Qin Ran lowered her eyes and glanced at the video on her phone. She had hacked into the school's surveillance office yesterday night. She had just wanted to take it out without the intention of using it. She lowered her head slightly and flipped to the school forum. The person who posted it had the ID Lei Feng. She couldn't find any clues. I didn't even do anything. Lin Siren was stunned and didn't know why Qin Ran had said this. You even gave me Yan Shi's albums. Do you know? I only had to use my mouth to get the albums. Qin Ran put down her phone and supported her chin with her cold fingers. I can't compare to you. Lin Siren looked up at her. Qin Ran smiled and didn't say more. After a while, she turned and looked at Lin Siren. In less than half a day, Class 3.9 added more details to the story and spread it on the forum, full of righteous indignation. It spread throughout the whole school. The students in Mu Ying's class also discussed this matter all afternoon. They talked about how Qin Ran had reversed the situation after the script had been torn, and also talked about Wu Yan. In the eyes of these students, Qin Ran became even more of a mysterious figure than Su Yaoguang. What a big deal, Qin Ran is Mu Ying's cousin. Li Yuhan linked arms with Mu Ying. Can you take us to your cousin after school? As Mu Ying raised her head, the people in class she was on good terms with were all looking at her with expectation and amazement. Her family background wasn't good and her studies weren't as good as Mu Nan's. This was the first time so much attention was focused on her. Mu Ying promised them to wait outside Qin Ran's classroom. After school at night. Qin Ran left later than the others as usual. As soon as Mu Ying saw her, her eyes lit up and she waved but didn't have the chance to speak. Then, she saw that not far away, an old man got out of a Mercedes-Benz and stopped in front of Qin Ran. Chapter 77. What Big Guts! You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Chapter 77. What Big Guts! Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios. Qin Ran was holding her phone while walking slowly with her head lowered when a shadow fell on her from in front. She didn't look up, just changed direction and continued walking. The figure paused for a moment and seemed to find her reaction unexpected. But he immediately turned around and reached out to stop her. Excuse me. His voice was slightly old, and although he was smiling, his eyes were narrowed as he looked at Qin Ran. He pointed to the Mercedes-Benz not far away. Our madam wants to see you. He nodded slightly, his tone neither humble nor overbearing. Qin Ran frowned and stood at the side. She was expressionless and didn't even raise her head. Make way. She didn't ask about the car nor who he was. She didn't even ask who his madam was. This was obviously beyond the expectations of the old man. Qin Ran's answer wasn't something he had expected. Madam Phone wants to see you, please come with me. The old man blocked her path again and said in a heavier tone. Qin Ran finally looked up. She turned the phone in her left hand and it traced a curvature in the air. Then, she clenched it in her fists and said with cold and dry eyes, make way. Maybe it was because nobody had ever spoken to him like that, but the old man was frozen in place now. Qin Ran bypassed him and walked forward. Within a few steps, she saw Mu Ying. Qin Ran was obviously in a bad mood. Mu Ying rarely saw her act this coldly. Cousin, she called softly. Yeah. Qin Ran cleared her throat and narrowed her eyes slightly. Her apricot eyes were still cold when she looked up. What's the matter? Oh. Mu Ying glanced at the car not far away and wanted to ask who it was, but she didn't dare to say more about it when she saw Qin Ran's expression. So, she just said, Mother heard that your hand was injured, so she asked me to invite you over on Saturday. How did she know? Qin Ran clenched her phone and thought for a while before replying, sure, I'll go. Sorry, my cousin has always had a bad temper. Mu Ying explained to her classmates with her head lowered when Qin Ran had left. Wow, her reputation is really well deserved. She comes with air conditioning within a meter. I'm so excited. Mu Ying, I can't believe she's your cousin. Who was that old man that got off the car? He looks so good. Before Mu Ying could open her mouth to explain, the group of people around her had exploded in suppressed, excited voices, and didn't seem to have just been ignored. Mu Ying, who still wanted to explain further, stood in a daze for a long time. She stared in the direction of Qin Ran and felt complicated. I don't know either. When Qin Ran got to the school doctor's office, Lu Xiaoying was holding his phone and laughing foolishly. He waved when he saw Qin Ran. Qi Qingjun had always been busy and should have left after the case, but he had stayed the whole day in the school doctor's office and was still holding Qin Ran's answer sheet. Qin. He opened his mouth, but before he could say more, Cheng Wan walked over from the mannequin, pulled out the answer sheet from his hand, and handed it to Qin Ran. Qin Ran glanced at it. It was the answer sheet she had copied. She paused. Cheng Wan stared at her, then said expressionlessly, "You dropped this here accidentally." "I've put it away till now." Qin Ran nodded and said politely, "Thank you." Qi Qingjun was still staring at Qin Ran. Lu Xiaoying didn't see it, but he and Cheng Wan had both seen that in this little girl's seemingly cluttered English answer sheet with a low score, the ABCD options actually contained a 5-letter Morse code. Morse codes were made by using long and short dots that represented English letters, numbers, and commonly used symbols. Qin Ran's 5-letter Morse code was in order. It seemed to be organized in the molecular formula of the tungstic acid. At first, he had wondered if this molecular formula meant anything. But after Cheng Wan's reminder, he discovered that the molecular weight of the tungstic acid's molecular formula was 250. This little girl was scolding people through the answer sheet. He didn't know what kind of circumstance she had been in while doing up the answer sheet. Qi Qingjun sat on the sofa and pressed his finger against his lips as he watched Cheng Wan change Qin Ran's bandage. At this time, the school doctor's office door was closed. Someone knocked against the door twice, anxious and loud. Lu Xiaoying's legs were propped on the table and he said absent-mindedly, "Come in." The door was banged open. Was it so urgent? Lu Xiaoying squinted and looked up. At one glance, he saw Principal Su, who was still wearing a suit and holding a briefcase after returning from a business trip. He quickly lowered his legs and stood up. "Elder Su, are you here to find Qi Qingjun?" Qi Qingjun hadn't noticed the person at the door. He had learned psychology before and was trying to decipher Qin Ran's psychological thoughts. Before he could analyze it, he heard Lu Xiaoying's voice. Qi Qingjun was stunned for a moment, then he stood up immediately and looked at Principal Su nervously. "Elder." Everyone in the school doctor's office subconsciously felt that Elder Su had rushed here to see Qi Qingjun. However, Principal Su didn't even give Qi Qingjun a single glance. He went directly to Qin Ran and Cheng Wan. Cheng Wan had just opened the gauze and was cleaning the edges with an alcohol wipe. A few days had passed and the wound on her palm had begun to heal. Still a little red and swollen and purplish, it still had traces of the stitches and looked even more terrible than before. Principal Su's expression changed almost instantly. "How did this happen to your hand?" "Principal Su." Qin Ran stared at him in surprise. Then, she looked at her hand and smiled casually. "Don't worry, it's fine." "Fine." "Doctor, her hand." Principal Su's face was dark. He ignored her and looked up to find that the person who had bandaged her hand was Cheng Wan. He was shocked for a moment before he said, "With you around, her hand should be fine." Principal Su heaved a sigh of relief. However, he couldn't help but give Cheng Wan another glance. This person only received one operation per month and it was already a routine. Then, this. He was hesitating when he finally noticed the school doctor's office surroundings. He was shocked and surprised to see Qi Qingjun standing there. "You're in Yunqing too." Qi Qingjun. He laughed and opened his mouth to say something, only to see that Principal Su had turned to Qin Ran again. "Say, what happened? You're already so big, how could you have injured your hand like this? Principal Su's expression wasn't good. He didn't look at Qin Ran's hand and only stared at her. Tell me, what happened to your right hand? Who the hell had the guts to touch your right hand? Does Feng Luqing know? Chapter 78. Forum picture. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 78. Forum picture translator. Atlas Studios editor. Atlas Studios, does he know? Principal Su looked at Lu Xiaoying and the rest and reacted suddenly. He paused before continuing, does he know your situation? It's fine, I won't be crippled. Qin Ran supported her chin with her other hand and pressed her fingertips against her lips. Principal Su had always been calm and elegant. He was rational and restrained. This was the first time Cheng Wan and the others had heard him swear. Cheng Wan carefully sprayed powder on Qin Ran's wound, glancing up at Principal Su at the same time. He was very quiet. But Lu Xiaoying wasn't as calm. He looked at Qin Ran in shock, then at Principal Su. These two people not only had a huge gap in terms of age but also in their identity. The Su family in Beijing couldn't compete with the top 3 families, but Elder Su's position in Beijing was extremely important. Hence, the Su family had always been ranked right behind them. Many people wanted to make friends with the Su family and get close to Elder Su. He didn't expect Principal Su to not only know Qin Ran but to be so close to her. He turned and saw that Qi Qingjun, who had been stunned from beginning to end, was now completely calm. Lu Xiaoying couldn't help but ask him. Is this very strange? Qi Qingjun raised his eyebrows slightly and looked away from Qin Ran before saying slowly, I can even accept Master Wan's weird behaviors, much less Principal Su's. No wonder he was a lawyer, he hit the nail on the head. L.Rg. Lu Xiaoying was stunned for a moment. He reacted and felt like this really did seem to be the case. But why was Principal Su behaving like this? Was it because she looked good and he liked looking at her? Principal Su said something to Qin Ran and Cheng Wan before leaving. The workers from the hotel had already sent food over. Tonight's dinner was crayfish. Qin Ran had been looking forward to it until she saw a layer of garlic on the crayfish's body. Lu Xiaoying and Qi Qingjun each opened a bottle of beer and drank it. Qi Qingjun had also brought a bottle of wine. Qin Ran poked a straw in, but it was taken away by Cheng Wan before she could even take a sip. Today's main dish is crayfish. He put milk in front of her and pointed to the table. Qin Ran poked at the rice with her chopsticks and looked up at him. It's only nice if it's spicy. Cheng Wan glanced at her and peeled a shrimp. He wasn't very skilled at it, but he was very meticulous. He was a doctor, after all. He trimmed the shells very neatly. He put the plump shrimp into her bowl, then took a piece of tissue paper and wiped his slender fingers. Try it. Qi Qingjun paused and marveled at this scene. Look, just like that. He lowered his head slightly and whispered to Lu Xiaoying. Compared to this, how big of a deal was Principal Su's reaction? Could you find someone in Beijing who Master Wan bowed his head to? Lu Xiaoying wasn't surprised and just asked Qin Ran casually, Qin Ran, how do you know Principal Su? Principal Su came to our town to help the poor before. I came to first middle school because of his recommendation. Qin Ran ate the crayfish in small bites. Her expression wasn't strange at all. Lu Xiaoying scratched his head and felt like this was too exaggerated. He opened his mouth and wanted to ask something, but Cheng Wan glanced at him and he immediately sealed his mouth. Cheng Wan lowered his head. His eyes were clear, but his heart wasn't as calm as he seemed. Who on earth was this girl in front of him? She was involved in the big case 712, and half of the information had even been sealed off. Feng Luqing had found 129 for her, and even the usually calm Principal Su was protecting her. Anybody with logical thoughts would be surprised. She was quite a mysterious person. At the same time. In an alley in the suburbs. Wu Yan, I'm sorry. I didn't expect Xiao Xing to disobey young Master Su and harm you. Qin Yu pushed the door and entered Wu Yan's room. Wu Yan was sitting on her bed in a daze. Hearing this, she responded slowly, "It's not your fault. Xiao Xing didn't do this." Her voice was hoarse and her eyes drooped down. She threw aside her white phone. The screen was still showing the school forum. Almost every post on the school forum was discussing and condemning her. Wu Yan was too afraid to even look at it now. If it wasn't him, who else could have obtained the video? Qin Yu looked at Wu Yan in surprise. Who else? Wu Yan laughed a little strangely and seemed to have remembered something. But before she spoke, she swallowed her words and changed the topic stiffly. My parents want me to change schools next semester. Qin Yu's lips curled slightly, but she restrained it in the next moment. Come and find me if you have anything. I will help in whatever ways I can. Wu Yan nodded indiscriminately and waited for Qin Yu to leave. Then, she picked up her phone and opened her photo album with her finger. At one glance, she found the picture she was searching for. She then clenched her fingers, cold and sinister. Her eyes were completely mad. The next day was Saturday. Qin Ran didn't go to the hospital. Instead, she called Chen Shulan and went to Ning Wei's house at noon. Ning Wei was on leave today. When Qin Ran arrived, the aroma of the food in the kitchen was still lingering with Ning Wei busy inside. Cousin, you're here. Mu Ying opened the door and let Qin Ran in. When Qin Ran entered, she saw that Qin Yu and Ning Qing were both sitting on the sofa in the hall. Ever since their last argument, Ning Qing had been lectured by Chen Shulan again. This was the first time she had seen Qin Ran since, and she picked up the tea on the table awkwardly. Ran, your hand. She glanced at Qin Ran's right hand and opened her mouth at the thought of what Chen Shulan had said. She wanted to ask about her right hand. It had indeed been bothering her all this while. However, before she could speak, Qin Ran turned and walked into the kitchen to see Ning Wei. Ning Qing's hand stiffened and she picked up the tea that Mu Ying had poured for her to cover up her embarrassment. Second cousin, your tea. Mu Ying handed another cup to Qin Yu. Qin Yu looked at the teacup and took it, but didn't drink it and just put it on the table. She didn't know how many people had drunk from this cup before, and Ning Wei's house didn't even have disinfectant. Mu Ying didn't go into the kitchen to help Ning Wei and Qin Ran. She sat beside Qin Yu and looked at her and smiled very obediently. Your watch is really beautiful. She saw that Qin Yu was on the school forum and couldn't help but pick up her phone. Second cousin, why are you in the school forum? She was used to entering the page. She flipped through it casually and saw that a post with almost 1,000 replies had the word Campus Bell on it. She knew that it was talking about Qin Ran and so couldn't help but click in. She saw the town plan at one glance and the half-dot covered title behind it. Her eyes widened and her fingers froze in disbelief. Qin Yu kept her phone at this time and turned over, asking in curiosity, Mu Ying, what's wrong? Ning Qing also looked over. Chapter 79. I know him. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 79. I know him. Translator. Atlas Studios editor. Atlas Studios. Qin Ran was in the kitchen. Ning Wei put the lid on the pot and saw Qin Ran's heavily bandaged hand when she turned her head. Stay there and don't touch the water. Ning Wei waved and wanted her to leave. Qin Ran thought about it and threw the vegetables in her hand back into the bowl of water. However, she didn't leave and just leaned against the door while squinting her eyes. Ning Wei thought about Ning Qing's relationship with Qin Ran inside, but didn't force her to go out. You found someone to install the air conditioner here, right? It's not easy for you to earn money, don't spend it on my house. Although I don't have many skills, I can still feed my family. Ning Wei nagged and continued talking. Also, don't buy clothes for Moo Nan anymore. The last time in school, the bag that Chin Ran had asked Moo Nan to bring back was full of new clothes for him. Chin Ran stared at the smoky pot and responded absent-mindedly. Ning Wei knew her temper. Although she had responded, she would probably still buy it. Several main dishes were ready and the soup had been boiling since morning. Ning Wei took the soup out first and Chin Ran followed with a few dishes. The atmosphere in the narrow living room wasn't very good. Ning Qing stared at the mobile phone in her hand and lowered her eyebrows. She said nothing while Qin Yu sat beside her, looking worried. Mu Ying clenched her skirt in her hands, fidgeting. Ning Wei put the pot on the table and asked, "What's wrong? What's with your expressions?" Ning Qing looked up and slammed the phone on the table. She didn't look at Ning Wei. Her eyes fell on Qin Ran and her voice trembled as she asked, "Tell me honestly, where did the money you paid for your grandma's ward last time come from?" Qin Ran bent down and put the bowl on the table. Then, she dragged a chair away and sat down at the dining table before answering impatiently, "It's my own." "Then what's this?" Ning Qing got up from the sofa, picked up the cell phone, and walked over to Qin Ran. She enlarged the picture and showed it to her. Qin Ran poured a glass of water for herself and leaned against the chair. It was a picture with a dark background. There were street lights and it was quite blurry, but her face could still be seen clearly in the picture. The person with his back to her couldn't be seen clearly, but he didn't look young. There was a Mercedes at the side. This photograph was too suggestive. Qin Ran's hand paused and she tilted her head. She looked at it for a moment and chuckled. "Did he give you money?" Ning Qing's head was about to explode. "You never used the money I gave you, and now. What do you mean by this? Are you deliberately provoking me and taking revenge on me?" Qin Ran understood what Ning Qing was saying. She looked up at Ning Qing slowly, her eyes indifferent. Ning Wei also knew that something was wrong. She grabbed Ning Qing's hand quickly. "Sister, don't be impulsive. Talk nicely to her first. Ran isn't a disobedient child." Since she had misunderstood her several times, Ning Qing eased her emotions and looked at Qin Ran. "Tell me, who is this person in the photo? Why did you meet him at such a late timing?" Qin Ran poured herself a bowl of soup and said casually, "Why should I tell you?" Ning Qing's head hurt at such an ambiguous answer and didn't even want to stay further in the Mu family's house. She grabbed her bag and rushed off. "Sister, you." Sigh. Qin Yu looked at Qin Ran and hesitated. Then, she sighed and chased Ning Qing. "Mother, wait for me." Ning Wei still didn't know what happened. "It's nothing," Qin Ran said calmly. She finished her soup and ate another bowl of rice. After playing a game with Mu Ying, she left the house and returned to school. Today was Saturday, and everyone else except those staying on campus was at home. Those who stayed on campus were either studying or hanging out. There weren't many people on the road. The students from class 3.9 were still discussing. Some people were gesturing to Qin Ran, their motions filled with indignation. Ran, why didn't you answer my call?" Lin Siren dragged Qin Ran over and asked in a suppressed voice. "Did you see the school forum?" Lin Siren picked her phone and opened the school forum to show Qin Ran, "Female students nowadays can really do anything for money. Isn't this girl the freshman in that class? No wonder I saw her using luxury goods even though she has a bad family background. Is this man old enough to be her dad?" The replies under the post were increasingly intensive. The comments on the photo were still increasing constantly. Qin Ran looked at it casually. At this time, someone knocked on class 3.9's door and the person at the door stood up straight. "Qin Ran, come out." It was a teacher. Qin Ran returned the phone to Lin Siren and followed after the teacher. The people in the class stared at her and discussed the matter in low voices when she was gone. Over here. Qin Ran followed the teacher to the office where several teachers were sitting. This is the case, student Qin. The dean recognized Qin Ran from the speech contest last time and had been very impressed by her, so his tone was still quite good. Someone has reported you anonymously for having unchecked behavior. Do you have an explanation in regard to this? Explanation. A female teacher glanced at Qin Ran in disgust. Students nowadays can do anything. A few teachers stopped her. The dean glanced at her and then turned his attention to Qin Ran, pondering. Qin Ran, this matter has already spread onto Weibo. It has a bad influence on our school's reputation and also on you. Can you tell me if you know the person in the picture? Did someone Photoshop this, or are you really intimate with him? If they didn't know each other, it would be much easier to settle this issue. Qin Ran raised her eyebrows slightly and then put down her mobile phone. She looked away lazily and chuckled. I know him. The dean was stunned. The female teacher looked at Qin Ran and sneered. But before she could talk, Qin Ran continued in a calm, unhurried voice, he's Feng Luqing. Chapter 80. He's Feng Luqing. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 80. He's Feng Luqing. Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios. The female teacher had rushed to the school after receiving the report. Qin Ran looked so ambiguous that she was a little annoyed and said directly, who is Feng Luqing? Can you contact him now? Why did you have to meet him at night? Before the female teacher finished speaking, the dean stood up. Are you talking about the Feng Luqing I know? Who else? Qin Ran nodded. Her voice undulated but was very polite. I got it. The dean looked at Qin Ran for a moment and his expression changed. I will handle this matter, you can go back to class. Dean, how can you just let her go? The female teacher didn't understand and yet didn't dare to be unbridled in front of the dean. But her tone was obviously not good. The dean looked at Qin Ran's back and was thoughtful. When he heard the female teacher, he narrowed his eyes and said softly, what did you plan to do to her if she stayed? You must call her parents and report her. The female teacher frowned. Won't this affect our reputation? Report her. The dean laughed and then nodded. Should we report Feng Luqing as well? He must be scum in society. The female teacher thought of the post and frowned. Why can't we criticize him? We can. The dean tidied his clothes and smiled slightly. You can go ahead and criticize him. You can hang our mayor on the school forum and criticize him by name. Go ahead, you're impressive. After he spoke, the dean ignored her. He turned over and talked to another male teacher. You can deal with this matter. The picture has just been released and shouldn't have too big an impact. Qin Ran is young and can't be affected. Delete all the posts for me. The dean was old and wasn't the kind of person who didn't have foresight. From Qin Ran's unbridled and generous actions, he didn't feel like she would do something of that sort. Furthermore, the other party was the mayor, so there was no way Qin Ran would joke about it. The male leader responded and quickly contacted the others with his phone. The dean nodded and left the office. The female teacher stayed where she was looking at the male teacher a little dumbfounded. What did the dean say? The mayor. Look him up on the official website or turn on the local news at night and you might hear or see him. The male teacher finished his phone call and smiled at her. The mayor of this city should be easy to find. The female teacher opened her mouth. The name Feng Luqing was well known in politics. But she was a little citizen living her life as each day went by, so where would she have the time to pay attention to the current affairs? Why would she pay attention to who the mayor of the city was and what his name was? Furthermore, the mayor was a person too far away from their daily lives. She usually had no contact with him at all and had never thought of paying attention to it. She didn't know that the mayor's name was Feng Lucheng. What had she wanted to do just now? Criticized Qin Ran and Feng Lucheng. The male teacher was still talking to a group of people who managed the school forum, but the female teacher had no intention of listening. She sat on a chair and stayed there indifferently. In the evening, Qin Ran went to the school doctor's office. Recently, Qi Qingjun had been staying at the school doctor's office and Cheng Wan seemed quite busy. Qin Ran changed her bandage and saw them discussing something in low voices. Cheng Mu had lowered his voice deliberately so that she couldn't hear. Qin Ran sat in the corner and played with a computer that they seldom used. Qin Ran, do you want water? Lu Xiaoying asked her with a cup on the table. Qin Ran squinted and shook her head. It's okay. What are you doing? Lu Xiaoying brought the glass of water over curiously. Qin Ran was biting a lollipop in her mouth while looking at the ID that had just appeared on the computer. She clicked something, causing the screen to change instantly to a game page, and smiled slightly. I'm gaming. Lu Xiaoying also smiled. You also play Kyushu Tour. Did you watch the competition? Qin Ran bit into her lollipop and nodded vaguely. Then you must know of Yang Fei from the group, Ost. He's very powerful. Lu Xiaoying chuckled. Didn't he just win the championship? There's a playoff game in Yunqing next month and the ticket can't be bought by most people. But I have a friend who knows them, so I can bring you to meet him next time. He looked like he was doing her a big favor. Qin Ran glanced at him and was silent for a while. Oh. Lu Xiaoying touched his chin, wondering why this girl was so different from the other female fans of Yang Fei. Kyushu Tour traveled all over the world and Yang Fei was the first player from China who had made a name for himself abroad. The young boy was extremely enthusiastic and wasn't just popular with Kyushu Tour fans in the country but also had his fan club abroad. In the past 2 years, Kyushu Tour had entered a new era known as the Sun God. Even Lu Xiaoying liked it very much and would often use his privileges to get tickets to watch. But Qin Ran. Was she a fake fan? Because the post on the school forum had appeared inexplicably, its disappearance was also inexplicable. The person who had posted it kept reposting it, only for it to be deleted. Since it was the school holidays, not many people knew about it. On Monday morning, Qin Ran got up from her bed and saw a pot of green plants beside it. She glanced over at Lin Siren's bed, she had already gotten up. Qin Ran squinted and went to wash her face before heading to class. In the afternoon, Qin Yu went to the student union. The school forum was managed by the student union. Senior. Everyone in the student council knew Qin Yu and greeted her very politely. Qin Yu nodded and went to the technical department. After chatting for a while, she asked casually, I have a friend whose posts have been deleted without reason, do you know what happened? The school forum was actually free.range. The person.in.charge heard this and probably knew what Qin Yu was talking about. Are you talking about that post? He lowered his voice. Qin Yu nodded. Her eyes flickered as she lowered her voice and asked, what's the inside story? Why was it suddenly deleted? Is it because it affected the school badly? No, you shouldn't bother about this. The person.in.charge looked mysterious. Why? He sighed and said softly, do you know who is involved in this? Qin Yu didn't really care and didn't know who Qin Ran was associated with, but she still asked, who? Mayor Feng.